So welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations. We are going to have a really important conversation today, be it with me and you. It's going to be us today. And so happy that you're coming in and joining in. And so first of all, this is Disruptive Conversations, in which we deep dive into the experiences that women have had to challenge in order to navigate and really overcome challenges in front of them to be able to achieve their personal and professional success. I'm Dr. Risa Ryger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. I help people change at any point in their life. Now, one thing for sure is that we are built for change. The other thing for sure is that positive change can happen at any point in your life. But in order to have positive change, you need to disrupt. You need to disrupt a thought, a feeling, a belief, a behavior in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And today we are going to be looking at mindset, growth mindset. And I'm going to, first of all, welcome everyone. So happy that you're here. And I'm going to start with a story that I experienced, that story that I'm going to share my experience with you of what happened to me many, many years ago. And I was a trainee and I had a supervisor. And this person, as I was in supervision with them, I was telling them about a story about my working with someone and what happened and the intervention that I made. And I noticed that they got like very tense and really kind of unhappy and in this aggressive fashion said to me, "Where did you get this from?" And I said, well, I've given the experience and I gave all my reasonings for it and how it was very helpful and really the consolidation of my thinking about that and trusting that I was doing a good job at the time, and actually the intervention had a great effect. And this person I noticed it, I felt something inside of me, and it really was a turning point. So back then, there wasn't language for that, and there really wasn't a way of conceptualizing this. But now that I think about it, I am absolutely certain, and I realize that that person had a fixed mindset and really needed to have a growth mindset. So that today, as we're talking about the importance and why that's important for you, what you do to build it, what I learned from it, and I keep that example of this person saying, "Where'd you get that from?" As if I was assaulting them and as if I was doing something awful. And I've come to realize exactly where that came from and why it happened. So let's start out with mindset first. And your mindset, it can be like a wrecking ball, or it can really be your path to the greatest asset that you have, your mindset, which is the way that you perceive. It's the lens in which you look at and experience different experiences. And so when we do that, we need to start beginning to understand how we think and where we can make changes. So to begin with, let's talk about a growth mindset and what a growth mindset is. So a growth mindset is believing that a person's abilities aren't just what you're born with, but that can be improved through effort, learning, persistence. And a growth mindset is about the attitude in which we experience challenge and that we're able to kind of step up and embrace challenge. Of course, we make decisions about these things, but we step up and we embrace challenge, that we don't necessarily feel challenged as a threat. And so when we have the growth mindset, that's one aspect. And then here are the characteristics of a growth mindset. So when you have a growth mindset, You believe that achievements come down to effort, and it's not just what you're born with. It's not just an inherent talent. You're willing to learn from your mistakes and find value in criticism. I'm just going to comment on that. I was having lunch with a wonderful colleague and friend, and I was talking to her about something, and she said, she wanted to make a comment about it. And she went ahead and did, and she said, I think that this could be better in this way. And she was waiting for my reaction. And I said to her, thank you so much. I really appreciate your comment, because first of all, it means that you care enough about me to think about what I'm doing, what's going on, and that you are also offering me the fruits, the gifts of your expertise to help me get better. And I just love that, and I'm so appreciative of it. So you believe that your intelligence and your ability can be developed. You're willing to ask questions, admit when you don't know something. And we're taught to don't admit when you don't know something, work around to do something, but admit that you don't know something, and at least admit it to yourself to start with. And that you're willing to get input from others, and you're willing to embrace the challenges. So the growth mindset is about taking in your picture, and expanding your screen. It's like when you take something in tiny little detail and you're just looking at that, but you're willing to look at a bigger picture and take more in to be able to make the decisions that you need to make. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about a fixed mindset. And we're going to go back to that. And a fixed mindset is believing that somebody is inherently good or bad at something. You got it or you just don't. And that's it. So there's no point in putting effort in, because you can't make the change, because either you've got the talent, you've got the ability, or you just don't. And so you're not comfortable with challenges, because a challenge means that it challenges you and can show up, where you don't have enough talent, where you may not be smart enough, and it doesn't lend itself to the equation of learning. And we also see this with children, where they're told, oh, you're really good at something. And that the emphasis isn't on learning and effort, but it's just putting categories in of being good at something or not being good at something, and not really emphasizing the importance of growth and development. And so when you believe that you have it or you don't, and then you find out that you don't have it, think about what that feels like inside. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have that. I feel less than, I'm not as good as. And here are some of the characteristics of a fixed mindset. So you believe that intelligence and talent are static, that it doesn't change. That's how it is. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. And that you avoid challenges because you avoid failure. And that fail is really the biggest 4-letter word that there is around town. That fail really can be the F-bomb that is just intolerable for a lot of people. You ignore feedback from others because you feel like you're the one who has to know it and be able to do it. You feel threatened by the success of others, because if they have it, it means that you don't, or don't have it as much. And you hide your flaws. So people get really sneaky and they hide their flaws. And so that, for instance, somebody with a fixed mindset needs to prove that they're right over and over and over again. They don't learn from mistakes. They don't iterate. They don't bring people in. And all of us, at some point in time, have worked with someone who has had a fixed mindset. And in retrospect, as I think about the person who I was working with, that person had a fixed mindset. They couldn't tolerate my coming up with an idea. They couldn't tolerate feeling challenged in some way or learning, taking information from others. And it is just so important to really get it. Now, we're not all, there's a lot of misunderstanding about mindset, also in growth mindset. And that growth mindset is supposed to be all about just being positive. And that if we're just positive enough, that tells the whole story. And this is where some of the real problems with mindset and growth mindset come in. But I'm going to share this with you so that you don't fall into that spot of thinking that I just have to be positive all the time. No, that's not what it's about. And just because you're positive all the time or not positive all the time, things can be hard, things can be uncertain, things can be worrisome, and that doesn't mean that you don't have a growth mindset. So it's a common misunderstanding. So a growth mindset isn't about just being positive. A growth mindset isn't just about praising and rewarding others. And simply talking about a growth mindset isn't enough. And so when we take risks, right? When we take risk, a risk means that you're not certain of the outcome of something. And when we take a risk, it means that it could work out, it could not work out. But there's also, in taking a risk, which is part of a growth mindset, that it's not just an uninformed risk, that this is informed risk. This is really being able to think things through, get input from others, getting to the points where you can really allow yourself to see the bigger picture and to figure out a way of trying to get there. You know, it's not like, a lot of people talk now that, kids, if they show up, they get the trophy, right? So showing up and just trying and putting in effort isn't enough, whether you're a leader or for yourself, because it's about iterating and coming up with good strategies. You need good strategies. And so when you're failing, you're not coming to the right, to the right spot, or as Thomas Edison said after he had, 10,000 tries at the light bulb, he said, I have figured out I figured out 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And that can happen. And this is part of the deal, that you iterate, you figure it out, you continue going with it. And so that if you have somebody who's coming in and trying very, very hard, but every single time they're coming in and they're trying very hard, but using the losing strategy, using a strategy that doesn't work, effort itself isn't enough. It's not just about effort, and it's not just about trying, but it's about learning from what you're trying in order to get to the next level. And that's the piece that really does keep us going. And that, I was at a conference for women's development, and they started with this video presentation. And this was the first line I heard, because this was about STEM and, with science and technology and math and all of these hard science areas. I love science, and it's a really big passion of mine. But the first thing that they said was, if you're good at math, and inside of me it went, because it's like, well, oh my gosh, that is really contrary. They were messaging contrary to really what we need to be able to do, which is that, I may not be so great at that, but I could learn something about it. I may not be so great at that, but I could learn something about it. I can get some bearings. I can bring somebody else in to help and really be able to move forward. And as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as people just living in your own life, we all need to recognize when we need help, when we need to tap on someone and say, hey, what do you think about this? I'm really pondering this. That you leave yourself open. And the kicker here, and this may sound really counterintuitive. It may sound like, oh, wait a minute, how does this make sense? That sometimes the more that you're able to be clear about what you don't know and go and get help for that and see that you're getting better with it, that what's happening is a couple of different things. One is that inadvertently you're building your confidence. You're building your confidence because it's like, well, I don't know this, but that doesn't mean that it's over. I don't know this, but I can find a way of knowing more about it. The second thing is, those of you who know me, you know that neuroscience is foundational for me in understanding how we leverage the power of our brains. The second way is that when we start to make changes, right, which is change is about disruption, making a change, that our brains and our bodies start to learn that change, challenge, disruption, that doesn't have to be an undoing, that you're not necessarily going to get hurt, and that you'll be able to withstand, to tolerate, and to build capacity, to build stamina, to get in, to be able to make the reach, because not everything goes into that space of comfort. And when we learn how to stretch inside of ourselves, that we have that, we model that for the people around us, people really get it, they understand it. They feel then that we're people that they can come to if you're in a leadership position. And one comment about that, which is that every single one of us is a leader in some way, shape, or form, because leadership is about having impact. And just take a moment and think about who you have impact with. And when you have impact, it's a form of leadership. So as you're thinking about growth mindset, fixed mindset, take a minute right now. Take a minute right now and think of someone in your life who you've worked with, who's around you, that is coming in with a fixed mindset and gets super rigid and really can't find that creative solution. Think of someone you know who has a growth mindset. And with the growth mindset, it's so important that also you know that we don't come in one flavor, and it's not all about growth mindset. That in order to really understand your growth mindset, you need to be able to identify where you have fixed mindset. And that's a space of where growth happens. It's like, this stuff I really seem to be comfortable with, and I'm able to stretch and move, and identifying the areas where you start to feel like you get tight and you get stuck and you lose your bearings and you lose your ability to be more flexible and innovative and go into spaces of creativity. And remember also that it's not just about showing up. That's the first step. You can't do anything unless you show up. But that results also matter. Being productive also matters. And iterating in the process of getting better, finding solutions, developing strategies, that's your winning spot. That's the spot where you're going to shine. and learning from what goes on. So this is a little bit of dropping some information here on growth mindset. And before we start to wrap up for today, just take a moment and think in yourself, what is one thing that you can do today? One thing that's doable. Don't get stuck. Don't fall into the trap of it's got to, go big or go home. Go doable. Find one thing that's doable and start building and fortifying and reinforcing and staying connected to your growth mindset. Do one thing starting today now. Commit to it now. Decide what you're going to do and start implementing that step today. So, as a way of saying thanks so much for joining today, please, if you haven't followed me, please follow me. I really bring important information week in, week out, as much as possible. And if you know someone who could benefit by this information, please let them know. And for coming here today and joining me, I'd like to offer to you my stress checklist to help you, because we all feel stressed and making change can be stressful. And making change can be stressful, and so we need to learn how to address that. So if you would like, and I would love to give this to you as a gift, DM me and just write the word stress. If that's too much, put an S in there, and I would be delighted to send you that stress checklist. It helps so many people, and I would love it to be able to help you too. And come join me next week for Instagram Live Disruptive Conversations. And remember that positive change can happen anytime. And when I see you next time, I've saved a seat for you. See you soon.